Hey guys, I'm gonna do the entire review with my hands covering my eyes, as Madame Indigo has told me from my last reading. If I cover one of my senses, my other senses shall be heightened and I will unlock psychic abilities. So yeah, this is gonna be interesting. Hey guys, it's Daniel. Welcome back to my channel. Here we are, episode 3, Lost Signal, Power Rangers Dino Fury. Let's get into it really quickly. But before that, as always, I will encourage you to hit that subscribe button as well as the notification bell. This way you'll be notified as soon as I post my next review for episode 4, New Recruits, which is a pretty good episode, I may add, but you won't get all the details now. You have to click subscribe and I'll get to that soon. I will also encourage you to check out my social media at blackandblue572 on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and TikTok. No more delaying, let's head right into this episode review. This feels somewhat important episode begins with Zato peering into a bright red pendant given to him by his mother on Rafcon, which I am telling you now will definitely not play a role in this episode at all. His alien haze is then interrupted by an intrigued Amelia. Zato expresses his desire to know if any of his people are still alive on Rafcon. They head down to the base where Amelia says Solon received a message from deep space, the same galactic quadrant of Rafcon. When played, the machine overloads, damaging a modulator from Rafcon, meaning that replacing it would be pretty impossible. This leads to Amelia suggesting going to see a psychic, Madame Indigo. Womp womp? To decipher the message. Ollie of course argues this and suggests going to an observatory his mom has connections to, which he thinks probably picked up the same signal. Zato, being the level-headed intergalactic Switzerland he is, decides to try both.
Who's gonna waste 15 bucks on a psychic?
Don't worry, I'll get the money. Ollie, can I borrow 15 bucks?
Smooth. Before we get the psychic reading, we see a reading featuring what appears to be progressive hipsters. Oh, that's just Jane, but seriously. Who falls right into this week's slapstick trap of wrapping a blindfold around her eyes because closing one sense can open another to embrace her powers, as Miss Indigo puts it. Which of course leads to her bumping into objects on her way out of this micro-carnival setup with Jay Borg filming. Normally I wouldn't find any of this funny, but the actress that plays Jane will probably end up being one of the best of the season, and works well with the script. Not to mention, I honestly feel like we've all met this woman at some point in our lives, which definitely adds to the humor. We finally see the Rangers meeting with Indigo, where she asks Zato for an object meaningful she could use to source his energy. Oh my god, I wonder what he'll give her.
Yes.
She gives Zato a generic reading about someone who misses him and wants to contact him. In a quick rebuttal to disprove this reading, Ollie asks Madame Indigo for insight into his future with Amelia. After leaving the tent, Zato realizes his teammates aren't actually in a relationship, understanding that Madame Indigo is indeed a fraud. However, he's still hopeful they'll get something from the observatory. I appreciate that even after going through embarrassment, Amelia still stands her ground in support of the mystic arts. I know we're still in the very beginning of the series, but I'd be surprised and admittedly disappointed if they don't dive into this interesting dynamic developing between Ollie and Amelia. They definitely keep pushing this science versus the paranormal aspect in their relationship. We then cut to Jay Borg being a klutz and Jane being an irresponsible adult abandoning her young helpless android. With one foot and quickly drawing cement, Jay Borg witnesses the birth, or is it rebirth, of this episode's sports beast Vipera, which quickly leads to a Swift Ranger and Mucus appearance, and Vipera demonstrating her ability to freeze living organisms like the classic goddess Medusa on Zato. Ollie quickly realizes the eyes on her chest are the source of Zato's petrification, leading to Amelia and Ollie aggressively looking the other way and covering their eyes.
So you figured me out, but if you can't see, you can't fight.
Well, you did just demonstrate your ability right in front of the Rangers with your glowing boobs. Which, come to think of it, I'm honestly kind of surprised that they adapted this monster because of that reason. When translating things from Super Sentai to Power Rangers, the production team is usually very cautious when it comes to female monsters with magical abilities involving their breasts. Once Sato's physically struck by Vipera, the other Rangers morph. While the Rangers are occupied with Vipera, Mucus steals Jayborg's camera. What could he possibly be planning? After the brief fight, they go to the observatory where they get no answers, which leaves Zato completely discouraged. While Zato takes time to himself, Amelia and Ollie go to Buzzblast to investigate the website's mysterious outage. Sure enough, it's Vipera, attempting to freeze Pine Ridge residents through the power of the internet with Lil Mucus and her stolen camera. This broadcast leads to the BuzzFeed employees freezing alongside Ollie and Amelia.
People of Pine Ridge, look into my eyes, and you'll all be frozen.
The loop makes its way to base, temporarily freezing Zato.
Turn that off before I...
Turn it off before you what? You didn't finish.
She's so good. Queen Solon is unaffected by the broadcast due to her cyborg eyes. After turning off the broadcast at the base, she frees Zato from his frozen state, but still can't free him from feeling incompetent, until Solon notices the item of the day. Say it with me now. The pendant.
My pendant? My mother gave it to me the day I became...
We know. She realizes that it's the same crystal as the modulator, which takes Zato back to his time on Rafcon, where his mother encouraged him to never give up. This leads to him coming up with the idea to use the Sonic Dino Key to enhance his sense of sound, so he doesn't have to risk looking at Vipera while attempting to fight her. Zato arrives ready to kick ass, or breasts. Oh.
You look like you're about to crack open a pinata.
I'm about to crack open something.
Still kind of surprised the writers decided to keep the excessive pumping of the sword when activating a key. Makes you think about whether or not they're going to adapt the Gold Ranger excessively pumping his gun when activating a key. He destroys the laptop, freeing the people of Pine Ridge from their stoned state.
Oh, my video was just going viral.
After Zato's cornered, a morphed Ollie and Amelia save him, but Vipera grows immediately after. The Tricera and Ankylosaurs aren't ready yet, so Zato goes against Vipera alone. But that lasts approximately 30 seconds, with both Zords arriving sooner rather than later. Amelia and Ollie command both Zords from the ground, strategically using the power of their Zords and keys to cut up the ground and reassemble it on top of her evil eyes. With the main nuisance gone, the Rangers form the Dino Fury Megazord for the first time on screen. A few twists and turns leads to Vipera returning to her Sporks form, which the Ranger successfully collects. Back at the base, Solon tries the machine with the new modulator, which ends up working perfectly, but the message is spoken in an alien language nobody recognizes. Zato refuses to give up after Solon comes to the conclusion that Rafcon's language could have easily evolved over millions of years. He decides to send a message himself, letting his people know he's alive, well, and awaiting a response. And on that hopeful note, the episode ends there. Lost Signal is definitely the weakest episode out of the first three, but that definitely does not mean that it's terrible. Far from it, actually. While the lesson of the episode was referred to or referenced to a bit too much, I find the execution of it actually kind of realistic. Life was just constantly not in Zato's favor in this episode, and while he did give up at one point, once he had his head held high, it stood aimed towards the stars. Too tacky? When the message came in an unrecognizable language, I felt like that honestly would have been the last straw for many, but not for our boy Zato. J-Borg is definitely not going anywhere. Does it suck that it takes away from time? Absolutely. Is it unbearably horrible? No. Like I mentioned, Jane and her chemistry with J-Borg made things interesting this time around. The idea of slapstick scenes absolutely just having to be in the series is still a bit of an enigma to me. For now, I'm just chalking it up to a network request or requirement from Nickelodeon to have comedic scenes, because that's the only rational reasoning I could think of. The Zords intro was done well and pretty cool in terms of cutting up like a street and using it to cover the eyes. But there was little to no anticipation plot-wise for the arrival of the Dino Fury Megazord. I know it may be cliche at this point, but I would have enjoyed a coming together type plot to symbolically complement the formation of the Megazord, instead of just a plot focused on a singular ranger. Other than those main points, the episode had the recipe for a pretty decent filler. This episode gets a high 3 out of 5. Thank you guys so much for watching. As always, leave a comment below telling me what you thought of this episode. Like I just said, it definitely had the feeling of a filler episode, which really wasn't a problem. I still enjoyed the episode pretty much. Once again, be sure to hit the subscribe button and the notification bell. And while you're at it, please hit the like button if you enjoyed this video. Comment. Interaction really helps, guys. Speaking of interaction, be sure to check me out at blackandblue572 on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and TikTok. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'm gonna start working on new recruits right now, I promise you, and I'll see you real soon. Thank you guys. Bye.